Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you are in this amazing world. My name is Donovan Jolly and welcome everybody once again for another video of DIY investing. On Monday we talked deeply about the XRP fractal that I've been noticing for the last few months now, and I also brought up another fractal that XRP is actually performing very similar to how gold did back in its last cycle in the early 2000s. This is when gold went from $200 to almost $2,000 per square ounce, and it was one of the biggest bull runs that we've ever seen in market history. This was also the same fractal that sent Bitcoin from $3,200 to $14,000 over the course of just a couple months. XRP is performing and setting up almost exactly the same, and they're doing the exact same fractal. The people that know this fractal are investing into XRP are setting themselves up to make a massive ROI, and so you guys are definitely not going to want to miss out on this fractal. Make sure you guys stay all the way to the end of this so you don't miss out on any new updates that I have, because I know that you guys are definitely going to want to stay because there's a lot of new things that I'm going to be talking about today. Help me get to 1,000 likes this video by smashing that like button. Make sure you guys comment and subscribe to this channel as well. Help me get to my goal of 20,000 subscribers. We're at 17K right now and we're getting very close to hitting that goal, so I'd really appreciate it a lot if you guys subscribe to this channel, click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos like the one provided for you here. If you're looking to join a community that you can trust, I have a Discord community with over 4,000 members and it's growing very rapidly. So if you would actually like to join a community where you can talk about your own analysis as well as just engage with other people in the cryptocurrency space, you guys are definitely going to want to check out the server. Now, I also offer some of my more exclusive content on here, like my video course and the signals. The video course is 20 educational videos that teach you guys all of the strategies that I use to profit inside of crypto. So if you're somebody that's been getting chopped around in this market, or if you want to actually follow some educational content that can teach you guys all of the things that you need in order to actually be a profitable analyst and trader, you guys are definitely going to want to check that out. Now, if you're somebody that would rather just copy what I'm doing with all of my trades and all of my portfolio, I offer portfolio management through the signal. So this is actually a way for you guys to copy all of the trades that I'm taking, all of my long-term investments, as well as exact percentages of how I've allocated my portfolio, as well as exit points for when I actually take profits. So if this is interesting to you guys, make sure you guys click in the description of this video, and there you're going to get access to my Discord. Click the invitation link in the description, and then once you guys have access, make sure you guys actually message me on Discord. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for the support. This channel has really been growing a lot, and I'm just thankful to have such a thriving, positive community to get behind me and just support us all through this amazing adventure. So we got a lot of charts to cover, so let's jump right in this video today. For today's video, I wanted to share with you guys the fractal. Now, on Monday, I actually talked about this fractal with XRP a little bit because, to be honest, what I found with Bitcoin and really, with gold in general, gold was the first one to follow this fractal, and this was really the market cycle that it created. Now, as you guys know, I'm a long-term investor with cryptocurrency, and I'm much more focused on cyclical analysis because I think that the big picture trend tells the clearest picture that we can actually use to know exactly what's going to happen. Now, obviously, no two cycles are ever going to be 100% exact, but they oftentimes rhyme. Now, there's going to be some differences between the gold fractal, between XRP and Bitcoin, but they all roughly follow the same exact trend. And that's why I think it's very important that we talk about these things today, because I know a lot of people are XRP holders, and obviously XRP has been dumping a lot over the last couple weeks. And so there's a big room for fear for new guys that maybe don't understand all of the technicals behind why they're investing, or maybe they don't understand the fundamental reasons. I wanted to make this video today to talk about the overall picture analysis that I'm seeing, the big cycle timeframes, because this is going to help us to have the clearest understanding of what's taking place here. Now, today we're going to be comparing this fractal, and we're going to be comparing it to Bitcoin, and we're also going to be looking at XRP. And I think that there's a lot of important things to be talked about, and I think that really XRP and these altcoins are setting up still. And I know that with the market correcting and actually starting to sell off significantly, a lot of people have been shaken out of the market. And in fact, I've actually seen a significant portion of people that were really big influencers of XRP. These are big Twitter accounts that actually have thousands of followers. And I've been watching these people because, for me, I've always been long-term bullish on XRP, so the lower the lower it's gone, the more I've just accumulated and I've just averaged into that position. But what I've noticed is, everybody else was following that same plan. But what I noticed with this most recent shakeout, when XRP actually sold below 20 cents and went to about 10 cents most recently in the last couple weeks, I noticed that there was a couple big accounts that are really big XRP influencers, and both of those people actually flipped bearish. And what they said was that they sold some of their bags to hold more cash so that they could rebuy a dip, and they expected that dip to be 50 to 60% lower. Now, this is what generally happens before the terminal end of correction, right before the market reverses. You start to see those people that were bullish the entire way down the dip start to take some short-term losses, start to hold that cash so that they can aim to rebuy lower. And it's the same thing here, guys. In a bear market, these same people that don't know how to trade are going to be chasing the wrong end of the trend. And it's the same case in a bull market or a bear market. The same people that were selling right here, the same people that just kept buying here thinking that it was just going to keep going up are the same people that are now cutting losses and then trying to aim to buy lower. And it's just fighting the trend. And you can see that the market sentiment has shifted. This most recent dip, a lot of people are bearish, a lot of people panic sold. And that's why I really want to talk about this today, is because I want all of the people that are XRP holders not to be listening to so many people that have no idea what they're doing. And, guys, I could be totally wrong with all of this, but what I do know is when I don't deviate from my trading plan and I stick to that trading plan and I don't try and take any losses or try and overcomplicate things, I am way more profitable, and it's that consistency that makes you a profitable analyst and a trader in this market. And so, with all of this uncertainty, with all of these people that have lots of followers that are now saying that they're taking losses and are going to buy lower, you know what? I want to keep you guys safe, and so that's what this video is about. Now, let's actually jump into the analysis today. So let's actually go through here and talk about the 2 cycle fractals. Now, what I want to talk about first is the fact that these 2 cycles will differ a little bit. If we look at Bitcoin and gold, after gold actually broke out of these lows, we went all the way up into new all-time highs, whereas Bitcoin started following that fractal, but instead of going into new all-time highs, we stopped and actually consolidated all the way back down. And so I'm still not bearish on Bitcoin, even if it didn't completely follow it exactly and we didn't just break straight into a new all-time high, because this fractal is still the same, and it's the emotional psychology that you watch out for. It's the human emotions that create the cycle analysis and the market cycle in general. And so you got to remember that there's going to be certain points where the trend deviates, and no cycles are ever going to be exactly the same. And so that's something to point out to. Now, we're actually going to dive into this photoshopped comparison that I made here, because this is going to be able to explain it a lot simpler. Now, basically what we have here is gold, Bitcoin, and XRP side by side. I've already gone through and actually labeled the little fractal comparisons, and we're going to go through here and actually analyze why this is the case and why I think that these 3 cycles are very much correlated. Now, to me, it would make sense why gold and Bitcoin are correlated and why they're following such a similar fractal analysis, because, Bitcoin is viewed as digital gold, and really they're both viewed as stores of value. But what's interesting is how XRP is actually following the same fractal, except XRP really isn't digital gold. It's more of just a cross-border payment system. And so they're actually in collaboration with the banks, kind of a bridgeway between fiat and this decentralized cryptocurrency movement. And so it's actually really interesting how we're seeing these 2 follow each other. Now, I've always been a big supporter of XRP because of the reason I do believe it has a significant use case for actually being a bridge currency between the decentralized and centralized financial markets. And I've been a big fan on XRP because it's just consistently maintained a top 5 status in market cap for the last 6 years, and really a top 3 stance for the biggest majority of time. And so I expect it to continue to perform well. And so now that we're actually seeing it perform and following this exact fractal, it makes me much more confident in my long-term decisions for investing in this. Now, let's go through here. Now, what we're going to go through is we're going to compare the gold and the Bitcoin, and then we're going to finish up with XRP. Now, basically, the way that these numbers are is number 1 is the top of the cycle, and so we'll go through and compare gold and Bitcoin. 1 is the top of the cycle, and then we can see that we make our first lower high here, and then we sell all the way back down, and this is really our first support floor that we make. And Bitcoin was the same thing. We get the cycle high, first lower high, and then we fall all the way back down. And this is really where we can just consolidate sideways, right? We have a lot of choppy action. This is where we go to number 2 and 3. This is just the chop, down to 4, down to 5. And now this is where the cycles start to get very similar, and that's really where I want to actually get a little brush out so that we can see kind of what is taking place here. Now, what I've noticed is between gold and Bitcoin. Now what I have noticed between gold and Bitcoin is how once you actually get to this part here, it starts to line up very, very closely. Now after 5, we go to 6, and this is where we start to get this kind of rounded out action right here. We kind of round out, and then we end up making one more impulse up into the 7, and then that's what sells us into our final leg lower. And this is very similar to what we see in Bitcoin. At number 5, right up here, we kind of make this sideways rounded accumulation back down onto trending support. And I'll show you guys kind of how it looks here. 5's here, we get this round out, and then we make one more impulse here into the 7 before selling off and going into one more low right there. And that's the same thing that happened right here. And that's really what I wanted to share with you guys, is the fact that both of these cycles are very similar. Now, obviously, what happened to gold is after we went to this final number 8, we rounded out, and then we went into new price discovery into the next cycle high, right? Now, the only difference between Bitcoin is even though Bitcoin followed this exact same cycle almost identically, instead of going straight into the new all-time highs, Bitcoin actually kind of just went to 14K and then corrected all the way back down. And so there will be differences in each cycle, but it doesn't mean that I think Bitcoin is bearish, because I don't think Bitcoin is just going to go to new all-time lows. I just think that this needed a little bit longer of a correction. And that's the thing about cycles, is you can't count on them to always to be exact, but they are going to rhyme. Now, what makes me extremely excited is the fact that XRP is following this. Now, this number 1 should theoretically be all the way up here, but the thing about the XRP chart is this bubble would go clear up here into the other chart, and so I had to delete it here. So this number 1 is technically the same as Bitcoin and gold. It's just the top of the cycle, right? Now, this takes us to number 2, and number 2, on gold and Bitcoin, this is actually where we found a 6K support floor, but with XRP, we actually made a lower low, and we didn't find our 6K support floor, or I shouldn't say 6K, we didn't find our support floor until down here in number 4. And so this is where the differences are going to kind of be a little bit, this is where the differences are going to come into play, but you guys got to remember that when you look at this pattern, it still looks almost exactly the same as gold and Bitcoin. There's just a little bit of a difference. Now, let's go through here and analyze some things. So number 2 would take us here, and then we get our first little impulse here, number 3, and then we fall back down. That takes us to 4. And now this takes us to the 5 impulse before we actually go through that same chain of events where we actually kind of round out here, make one more attempt at a breakout, get rejected, and then we fall to one more low before we actually go into the next cycle. And Bitcoin did the exact same thing here. We topped out, we kind of round out, make one more attempt, get rejected, and then we fall to here, and then we go into that next cycle. And XRP is very, very similar here. After the 5, we start to round out here, and then we make one more attempt to break out. This is number 7. We get rejected, and then we fall to one more new low. And this is really where we start the true accumulation before we start that next uptrend, right? Now, this is the cycle fractal analysis that I really want to talk to you guys about, because XRP, gold, and Bitcoin are all showing this exact same correlation. Now, it does not necessarily mean that there's a lot of correlations between gold, Bitcoin, and silver, but what I think it predominantly means is that these are the cycles that have the most amount of money coming into them. They're the most consistent, and so it would make sense to me why they would follow each other. I mean, Bitcoin just recently followed the gold fractal. Gold was the first one to do this back in the 70s all the way to the 2000s, so a 30-year cycle, whereas Bitcoin just recently did this from the top of 2018 down to early start of 2019. So about a year's time we made this cycle. Now, XRP is just slowly behind Bitcoin, and it would make sense. If gold was the real first store of value that we ever used, and then we start to get a digital form of store of value in Bitcoin, it would make sense that Bitcoin being correlated with gold, being viewed as a store of value, it would accumulate based off of the same cycle. Now, obviously these altcoins being XRP is an altcoin, and you guys obviously know that altcoins have only been around for about 6 years at this point, and so they're a little bit even further behind Bitcoin. And so it makes sense to me how altcoins are always a little bit behind Bitcoin, but now what we're starting to see here is Bitcoin already made this gold fractal, and then we actually went into the new cycle highs, And now XRP is just slightly behind Bitcoin, whereas XRP is coming towards the very terminal end of its correction, whereas Bitcoin's already made the gold fractal, it's already made a higher high, and in theory, we should see Bitcoin start uptrending towards those all-time high marks, whereas XRP will start making its first impulses. And so let's actually go through and look at the XRP chart before we finish things up, because there's something I want to talk about here. Now this actually takes us to the Wall Street cheat sheet. This is the emotional psychology of a market cycle. And let's actually go through here and delete all of these so we're not so confused. Now, with this Wall Street cheat sheet, I'm just going to pull it. With this Wall Street cheat sheet, I'm actually going to pull it all the way up here so that it's easier to see. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about is just how correlated these two cycles are. And I'm actually going to go through here and kind of label it for you. Now, I'm going to go through and label the same numbers as the other ones, and then we'll kind of see how they kind of coexist. Now, this is obviously number one. This is the top of the cycle. We make our first lower high, and then we drop to our support floor. So this equals 2. This is our first bounce. This would be 3. We fall back down, retest support. This is 4. We bounce once again. That's 5. And now this is where we go into that rounded part, where we kind of round back down to the support. We make another impulse. This is technically... This would be number 6. We make one more impulse here. This would be number 7. Now, this is where the emotional psychology Wall Street cheat sheet cycle differentiates. This one makes a higher high after 7, whereas obviously Bitcoin and these other cryptos, they actually sold off, right? And we could see that here. Bitcoin, 7, we sell off, whereas 7 on this one, we kind of impulse for a higher high. And so this is where the two cycles are going to differentiate, or I should say the 3 cycles, because no 2 cycles are ever going to be exactly the same. But you guys can see here that we get the same sort of accumulation. And really, XRP is just at this little bit, like probably about a year behind Bitcoin. And this is what we're actually starting to see. And so I think that all altcoins are just a year behind Bitcoin as far as accumulation, as far as how their market structure goes. And now the Bitcoin's already made its higher high. We've sold off all the way back down to 4K. I still think we could come back down and retest about $3,800. But in my opinion, Bitcoin is very much bullish, and this is a higher high on the overall macro trend before we go much higher into new all-time highs. The fact that XRP is just a year behind, the fact that both of these are following gold makes me very confident in these investments long term, because it shows that there's a lot of accumulation taking place. Anytime you have such a strong market cycle like gold that performs so well over the years, and now we're starting to see 2 of our favorite cryptocurrency investments actually following that same fractal, it makes me very confident that the longevity of our assets is going to perform very well, and it makes me confident that we chose wisely when actually picking those assets to accumulate. Now, if we go through here, one final thing, I want to talk about this market cycle graph, because I think XRP is following it almost exactly, as exact as you ever could. Now, kind of what I've been updating you guys with, if you've been following my channel, is this chart compared to the Bitcoin chart. Now, everybody's been drawing this main trend line in Bitcoin that's held us since about 2016. This was the main trend line of the last cycle. And what you guys obviously know is this most recent sell-off that we had actually broke that trend line. And I've been sharing with you guys this exact market cycle because I told you that this was exactly what needed to happen before we could start a bull run. As you guys know, that the way that the market cycle works is we start this mean trend line, that's this dotted line here, and this is really the average trend line of the entire cycle before we make a big parabolic run, and then that's the start of the bear market, the top of the cycle, and then we start this big long bear market, right? But you guys got to remember that based off of this cycle analysis and based off of the market cycle graph in general, that the new cycle can't start until we've actually broken the previous trend line, right? That would be the mean, this dotted line here. The new trend and the new bull trend can't actually start until we break down below that. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because Bitcoin did that. This most recent sell-off in Bitcoin was actually Bitcoin selling off below that trend line. Now, let's actually look at it real quick so you guys that maybe don't know what the heck I'm talking about. So let's actually take a look here. This is the trend line that I was talking about. This was the trend line that held us the entire last cycle and even partially in this bear market. But what recently happened in Bitcoin was we actually sold that, and it now looks like we're below that. Now, this is kind of what the point that I was trying to make here is that the new trend can't start until we break the previous trend line, and that's what takes me to XRP today. Now, this was really kind of that trend line that held us in 2016. or I should say 2017, we made a blow off top here. And this is very, very similar to what we're seeing here now in XRP today. Remember, guys, we got to break through this long-term trend line. So if we take a look at XRP, we can see that we have this long-term trend line. We had our blow off top. We came back down. We fell onto support of that mean trend line. But what recently happened was we actually sold below that, right? And so this is the same thing that I've been telling you guys about with Bitcoin. Why I'm not super bearish, even though we did break that long-term trend line, is because, you know, guys, the new cycle can't start until we actually do that, because we've got to shake out all of the dumb money. And that, you know, it makes me feel like we're very close to capitulation, because we're starting to see those XRP influencers that were bullish the whole way down starting to now capitulate, starting to now say that they're going to buy lower, looking to rebuy lower and place lower bids. But you guys got to remember, I mean, we are so low here. Why are you messing around with a couple percent return? Yes, even though we could drop to 6 cents and, you know, 3 cents, and it could be a 50 to 60% drop. Look at how much we've already dropped, and you're trying to mess around and trade your long-term portfolio. Are you really that good of a trader? Do you trust yourself that much? I don't, because I've been the person that tried to do that in times past, and it's always made me lose out on the more money had I just held and had I just stuck to my plan and accumulated the dip. Even if I'm not able to buy, you know, 30,000 XRP when it's at 6 cents compared to me buying, you know, a few thousand XRP at, you know, 20 cents. Yeah, that's a big difference, but most people aren't good enough to trade and aren't good enough traders to actually do that consistently. And I mean, if we look at this from the all-time high to where we were at the low, was a 97% sell-off. I mean, do you guys really want to mess around with another 1 to 2%? Or would you guys rather just hold, accumulate, stick to your plan, and just watch as this market cycle plays out? Because to me, you know, if we compare this to the market cycle graph, this is exactly what we want to see. If we compare it to the gold fractal, this is once again exactly what we want to see. If we compare it to the emotional psychology or the Wall Street cheat sheet, this is exactly what we want to see. And so all of those people that are trying to tell you that they're going to sell and aim to rebuy lower, those people most likely aren't going to get filled, and they're probably not going to end up rebuying lower. And in fact, they're going to end up getting the pump tax, as Crypto Bitlord likes to say, the pump tax. And what that means is these people sell their bags, aim to rebuy lower, only the market never goes lower and it ends up bouncing, and then they get the pump tax, which means they have to end up rebuying higher than they initially sold. That's the way that these cycles work. That's the emotional psychology of the market. So I like to share with you guys this analysis, is because it's much easier to see somebody that actually knows what they're talking about, somebody that's actually been able to trade these cycles before. Because oftentimes in cryptocurrency, all of these influencers on Twitter are just average retail investors, and I'm just an average retail investor. But the thing that separates me from the rest of the people is the fact I do actually know how to profit, whereas most people don't actually know how to do that. They don't know how to stick to a plan and trade that plan all the way through, and then they end up making dumb choices like selling the bottom of XRP, even though it's showing an exact replica of a bottom of a market cycle. So anyways, guys, this is the analysis I had for you. If you guys found any value in this, always remember to do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to this channel for more updates. Click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos like the one provided for you here. I also have the Discord server, so if you guys are to actually look to join a community, the community is free. You guys can totally join this for free. In the Discord, I actually do offer some of my more exclusive content like the video course and the signals. So if you guys want access to that, all you got to do is click in the description of this video, and there you're going to get access to my Discord. Actually, click that invitation link in the description. Once you guys have access, just shoot me a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But with all that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. I know it's really trying times in the market right now with all of this retracing. Things have been getting very, very scary, and I know a lot of people that haven't been around to trade these cycles can feel very intimidated in this time being. But you guys got to remember that this is the analysis that I stick to. I always stick to that big picture trend, because to me, you know, when you're averaging and you're sticking to that big picture trend, 2 years from now when crypto is performing very well, none of this won't even matter, and we'll be looking at all of our massive amounts of profits, and we're just going to be thankful that we held that trend and we didn't try and sell and rebuy lower and try and get any of that pump tax, because we don't want that pump tax. This is a pump tax free zone. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will catch you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.